Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Commodity TV and a new edition of our online interview series. We want to get an update from Tudor Gold, and Konkin, the CEO, is here with us. Ken, good morning to Canada. How are you?
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you again. Thank you very much. I'm a shareholder of the company. I want to disclose that also upfront, and probably let's put it that way. I'm not so happy if I look at the stock price, but who is that these days? But on the other hand, I must say I'm totally happy what you guys have achieved the last, let's call it 12 months. As you brought out some, 2 weeks ago approximately, a new mineral resource estimate. And what I like really with it is that, 3 billion pounds of copper. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is. That's a new twist with the project for sure. Yes.
Yeah. So can you give us a little bit more insight how you, let's say, value that new resource estimate? I mean, copper for sure is something I'm totally bullish on. Copper, Pierre Lassonde is totally bullish on copper. I see $7 the next 3 to 5 years, absolutely makeable. But I think this copper alone looks to me like like a standalone mine, and then your gold and silver in addition. I mean, that is crazy good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's never a bad thing to expand on a strategic metal that's probably the hottest metal now and probably in the foreseeable near future. So we're very fortunate that we've adapted our approach to target things like CS600, that one domain that carries most of the copper component. When you look at the overall resource, it looks low, but when you actually concentrate on the actual CS600, you get a 0.32% copper, and it's a really beautiful gold, copper, silver component that we think has possibly over half of the future resource, because that's where the expansion is actually running. Our drill program will be attacking some of those best holes we had near the end of the year that really boosted the overall resource from where it was at a lower 0.74 to over a gram, 1.13. Yeah.
Super. There is also, I could imagine, one of the major differences, right? So grades are higher, the copper in addition. Is there anything else which you would say has changed?
Yeah, sure. I mean, when you look at the resource, the initial resource was just that. And I always, in hindsight, I wish this was the initial resource, because this is the one we had the best geological control. It's the one that we had the most drilling on. Typically, you don't pull these out until 4 years of drilling. This is 4 years of drilling for me on Goldstorm. The previous 2 years of 2019, 2020, we rolled that out in 2021 Q1. So we had no drilling that we had from 2021 or 2022. So think of it as two independent programs. One, the initial resource, and the secondary one was the one that we knew we'd sink our teeth into some real major grades and some big copper that we had coming. And some of the holes, just to kind of testify to the strength of copper mineralization. Our superstar hole that was one of the northern aspects was hole 113, wedge 2. And we left all the steel down the hole because we couldn't continue that hole at the end of 2021. We'd continue it this year in 22, this past year, and extended that thing out over 160, 180 meters. But that entire hole ran 1,497.5 meters of 1.12 gold equivalent, of which the copper was 0.27, slightly lower than the 0.32. But the funniest part of the story is the upper portion almost has no copper. It's all in the bottom part. So if you look at the CS600 aspect of that composite, you'll see how that really stands up, because 732 meters of that still ran 0.91 gold, but it ran over 0.5% copper consistently at 0.53, and it's still open. We didn't get to the bottom of it. So we're talking about an absolute beast to the northern aspect. This thing is gaining strength and magnitude. Goldstorm is gaining strength and magnitude to the north, for sure.
Okay, sounds fantastic. Super. Was that also one of the reasons, let's say, that you brought out this fantastic resource estimate that your financing was rapidly upsized? I heard some funny stories on that. What happened?
Oh yeah, we started out looking at what we needed, and we thought, well, we'll just take what we typically we do a financing now. We look at one in the fall, but we thought, well, if the strength of the markets are, we just don't know what they're going to be in the fall. So we thought, well, let's just see what happens. And you never know how well we respond to putting out basically a release on how much we can raise. Well, the book was full within hours. I could not believe it. How many people came in? They came in not strong, but we had to cut them back. I mean, people were pared back because we couldn't. We just cut it off at 16 million. We just oversized it. We said that's enough, and we'll take enough to go forward. I think we're safe to say that the next 2023 is in good hands financially. We'll have no issues drilling what we need to do in Goldstorm specifically.
Okay, super. So drilling what you need to do, how many meters would that mean? What are, let's say, targets you want to achieve, or what do you want to test really specifically with the money, which brings you further?
Clearly the northern aspect has paid huge dividends for us in the assay sheet. So we're going to go back to that. We're going to complete the drilling that we always do this. We always pick up where we left off, just because, as I've said, strength and magnitude, the increasing intensity on Goldstorm to the northern aspect, that's the northwest, northeast, even due north, but also to the southeast as well, because that DS5 has some pretty incredible grades. For that one domain had a 1.32 gold equivalent, and it's almost all gold only. So it's 1.37 is the gold equivalent. So 1.32 is gold, sorry. So 1.32 gold equivalent alone at these cutoffs that we've actually chosen. And one of the, I'll just go back a bit for the resource. One of the big things we did do was we doubled what was the accepted out of pit or bulk tonnage underground of 0.35. We doubled it to a 0.7 to see what the acid test would come out and bring to us. And we brought a very robust number that launched it over a gram. And even if you look at our sensitivities of a gram cutoff, you're still in for over 15 million ounces of gold equivalent. So very impressive quality ounces at a grade of almost 1.5 grams. So that's the new bar. That's the new limit we're going to try and shoot for. So we're targeting 1.2 to 1.5 material is what we want to go after here. So we need this to come to an end in the next year or so to get to the back wall. We want to find the limits to constrain the final constraints of Goldstorm, because this beast is still open. So we want to get it into a cage to where we can start doing things like all the pit configurations, the things of geotechnical, because we need to know what the actual mine model is going to look like for the PEA.
Okay, super. By the way, do you have an idea about a number for your discovery cost per ounce so far?
You know, this is the funny thing, because back in the day, I used to do this at about $1 an ounce just on the drilling aspect of the project. Now we've actually creeped up over $2 an ounce, but just on Goldstorm alone, I kind of had to be fair to it because we did a lot of satellite drilling. Just on Goldstorm, it is around $2 an ounce still, because if you've got arguably close to 25 million or 23.4 million in gold equivalent on the new resource, with another say 7 million out there is inferred. But once we convert that in, so comfortably I can say that, yeah, we spent about 50-60 million bucks on Goldstorm specifically. So you're looking at $2 an ounce, which is absolutely impressive, even with these inflationary times. I mean, we do everything we can to keep the drills turning and make sure that all the money goes basically into the ground.
Okay, super. Let's talk shortly a bit about Treaty Creek, your Treaty Creek project. It looks to me like that could hold an incredible geological potential, maybe hopefully for discovery of large intrusive related and porphyry type targets. Can you explain that a little bit, maybe in more simple words for our audience, maybe not too technical.
Okay, no, but as a
impossible.
nutshell, that's an excellent point you make, because what people think of this is it. We've got the mine. No, this is just the beginning. There are three more targets. The fourth one, actually, there are 4 targets, because within the northern aspect, we have tripped into high grade. A lot of high grade that we did not intend on happening. I never saw that coming. I actually expected that towards the other end at Perfect Storm, which brings me to your question. That is, in a nutshell, the geological potential to have another Gold Storm event occur at Perfect Storm, which is equidistant, perfect distance of 2.5 kilometers from Gold Storm, 2.5 kilometers from Iron Cap. And it looks like the entire basic Gold Storm universe is expanding. If we can actually get another set of holes to loosely identify a large system, which we've actually done from the 6 previous holes, we've vectored forward. Now that we think with our geochem, check out slide 18, very compelling slide on our corporate presentation of all that superficial geochem. We'll be putting drills on that. So those are my 2 big targets right now. Is the northern aspects, all northern aspects of Gold Storm, the system, and also Perfect Storm. Because if you can ever double something, that's the place you'd go. And to get a chance find for another Valley of the Kings, because of that structural relationship between the Bruce-Jack Lake Fault intersecting that thrust system, that TTF1. So that's what we're doing summer.
Okay, super. Valley of the Kings. That's very good saying what you just said, because you published some holes like a GS22134 with a high-grade intercept of almost 21 grams gold equivalent over 4.5 meters, and another hole returned over 8 grams over 5 meters. So that looks like that something is really changing here with much higher grades in your deposit,
that's absolutely. That's slide 17 on the corporate presentation. Everybody should have a good look at that, because not once do we ever target high grade, and these holes are far apart, so it's like history's repeating itself for me. We came out looking at center of mass on the resource side of things at Valley of the Kings. Before it became Valley of the Kings, it was just called the Bruce-Jack Lake Project, and we had wide space drill holes all over the place, and we caught a bunch of lower grade envelope, and we just tripped into a high grade system. And actually, the discovery hole was drilled in 2009. We didn't act on it until 2010. Like these results that you're describing, because to me it would be a distraction. Once we found in that case they were extreme examples at Valley of the Kings. They're in 17 kilos. However, that 25.5 meters of 10 grams at, say, hole 134 was a shocker, because 134, when we drilled it, was a 500-meter step out. That was an incredible step out. We didn't extend the end of 113 at that point. We didn't know the system was that strong, and we didn't know that kind of gold existed at the bottom of that hole. So incredible numbers that were unexpected, nice surprises, and something that I always look forward to seeing at, I thought, Perfect Storm, just because the structural relationship, hence the name Perfect Structural Storm. And that's where we're going to be putting 2 rigs on this year too, hopefully. So the actual meter count, just to go and back up and answer your question, we haven't dialed that in. We're having meetings with our resource people and our new exploration managers, and we're going to sit down and dial in exactly, prioritize hole by hole, the priority and how we want to drill it. So those meters will be coming up in a press release probably next, say, 2 weeks or 3 weeks before we get going.
Okay, super. Aren't you in fear to be taken out too early, too cheap? I mean, B2Gold paid like, I think, a 40-45% premium for Sabina, for example. Sabina was really long around. Now B2Gold took advantage, it looks to me like, on that. But is there anything which you can prevent
the perception,
from taking out too early?
Always there. That's a great question, because what we're doing is, and you've got to be careful about this, because what you're doing as you advance, you want to bring in a strategic alliance, and that's always there. Like you mentioned, that there's the M&A, mergers and acquisitions. People are looking, people are hunting, because the prices are great. I mean, B2, I think that was a good deal. And in defense of Sabina, I think it was a fairly good deal for both sides on that part at the time they had the project at the level they had gotten to. Because when you go to the next level, costs just go up immensely when you see the next. It's exponential actually when you go from say a feasibility to an EA, and then you start the construction and you start doing the actual earthworks. That's where the heavy lifting begins. It's a completely different skill set. But our answer to that is our pricing is a simple answer. It's if we look at a final resource, if you have a strong resource with a road to it, yeah, you can expect $30 dollars an ounce equivalent. But what you have is the next level that you could work towards is a PEA. If you work to a PEA, then you double that. Then the cost per ounce once you've achieved the PEA, it's a saleable, 50 to $100 an ounce equivalent is assessed value. Then at that point, you do the next step to the feasibility, to where we would say, okay, we've gotten through this level. Now a feasibility is on the horizon. We've completed this. There, it's anywhere between $100 to $200 an ounce. So when you apply $100 an ounce to 25, you're looking at 2.5 billion market cap for our company. So there's the goal, and where you jump out is a decision made for by the shareholders. But the critical component, I think, is always that timing is when you bring in a strategic alliance, when you bring in a major to come in and start partially funding these things, partially coming in to look at it. And that's not saying they're going to be the ones that take it over specifically, but that's the underlying feeling is it's a goal or a joint venture will be drawn up based on that partnership. So it's one of those things where we'll see. Let's see. And I've mentioned this in the past, and I'll guarantee you all those majors are flooded with property submittals for them to go through and to dissect. And we've been very conservative in that regard. We know where we're going. We know that this is going to head to a PEA next. We know that we won't do a PEA unless the feasibility looks like it'll work. So going forward, it's going to be a rapid succession while we're still exploring on Perfect Storm. We want to finish off Goldstorm so we can wrap that up in a nice bundle. And then you have two separate zones on separate claims that you can even deal with separately. You can even do a deal with one company on Perfect Storm. You can do another deal with another company on Goldstorm, because it's getting that large. That was another funny one. People ask me, what's going to happen if it gets to be too big? Well, that's a good problem to have, I suppose. But
that's a luxury problem.
You do something like that. You have competing companies side by side with pits 3 kilometers apart all over the world. So that would not be a difficult problem to solve, for sure.
Okay, super. You already spoke about PEA and pre-feasibility studies. I think you're also working on some baseline studies and metallurgical test work. What's the status there?
Yeah. We've with this new drilling of the CS600, we've taken material that we've never actually tested before. I don't want to tell you too much about it, but there'll be a good press release coming out about that. The smooth nature of that entire copper gold system on just a flotation system alone. But going forward, I think it's we've actually retested areas of the previous test and came up with some good finds. So we'll have all that coming to you in a metallurgical update. And the good news is the only thing we're funneling down to is whether we're working with an on-site process versus saleable concentrates. So we've worked it out to where we do have the ability to have a saleable concentrate on the CS600, but now we're looking at towards getting the cleaners and from the rougher. We had the initial press release without even any attempts at suppressing pyrite. So there's 0 attempts. And we've taken a more scientific approach and matched up and gotten a much more representative sample, is the best way I can say. It was like taking the resource and trimming off the fat, same thing. It was an initial pass that gave us some really good data. I mean, the kinetics on the system on the very first test was something like 85% recovery in 7.5 minutes. So it's lightning quick as it comes out. So we had some really good data that came out from that. So we just expanded on that. And our final results should be out in, say, 6 weeks on the CS600. And then we're turning our attention on the 2 gold dominant DS5 and the 300 horizon, along with copper pulp, for sure. Okay. So I'm thinking that these things are very solvable solutions that we have going forward with a very positive economic response to. So we're in good shape.
Super. So that would also further de-risk the project, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So along things like location and access, I mean, people say, well, it's so far north. Well, it's not that far north, actually. I mean, it's Canada's northernmost ice-free port, so it is always ice-free. You can get in there anytime. But Seabridge has been working diligently this last year and a half now to put in a road, and I'm told they're going to bring it right to the edge of the project. So I'm loving to see that road and a power line, the full-on high-tension power lines coming too. So those things are going to really add value to the anybody who looks at us as a strategic partner that want to come in and say, this is the next one. This literally is a company maker, this project. I mean, you take the amount of gold, copper, even silver. I mean, silver, I've always kind of just thought, well, silver was such a low grade, but now I'm looking at the grades, they're sneaking up. So those numbers are actually looking attractive. And if you're talking about strategic metals and things taking off, well, that's another bright spot on the gold, copper, silver story is the silver for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Super. And I'm also super bullish on silver, to be honest, because with all that solar in the world and e-mobility, we need so much silver, so much, much more than we are producing today. It is amazing for the next 10, 20 years. Super. Yeah, that looks all fantastic, I would say. So if I get you right, we can look forward to a lot of news releases the next 6 to 8 weeks, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we're just having meetings right now with all the field generals. We're going to arm all the drills and get them up on site and pick up where we left off, finish off the northern aspect of Goldstorm, and we really need to concentrate on having it completed so that we can actually finalize all of the metallurgy. Because one of the aspects of that whole kind of discipline is, when you go forward, you find things that happen, like you see a lot more free gold. I want to let the cat out of the bag, but all of a sudden the character changes of the mineralization to where all of a sudden gravity tests become really important. So like you say, when you see that northern component and you see free gold, out of those 6 drill holes, 5 had visible gold. These were really wide spaced holes. Previous to that, we had in 2020, we had 49 drill holes, 10 of which we saw visible gold. So a 20% hit ratio. We went up to over 80% on the northern aspects. So that just tells me one thing. We're not that good. We're not that lucky. I think there's just that much gold. So all of these things are ongoing. Our baseline studies, I think, completed this month on all our 2-year feasibility for, 2-year baseline for our PEA, our preliminary economic assessment. So we've got that taken care of. Now the only thing left to do is to go forward, move forward more on the geotechnical front. So that'll be part of the plan this year, I believe, is one of the things we'll be discussing as we advance exploration.
Super. Sounds like a super busy work program, busy year. I have a good feeling that we talk quite soon here. And thank you very much, Ken. Keep fingers crossed. And I think I got to buy some shares.
Okay, smart move. Yeah, I hope we don't see these levels anytime soon again. I think it's going to be all heading north here. Everybody heading north. For sure.
Super. Perfect. Okay. Thank you very much, Ken.
You're very welcome. Anytime.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that was Ken Konkin, the CEO of Tudor Gold. Yeah, you heard it. One of the largest gold resources and silver and now also copper in the world. And the company is really moving forward. The stock price has not moved really forward. So maybe you have a very good look onto the stock. It's really a bargain here to get into that. And the company is drilling again. Of course, the company is financed for this year also. That is very important. And with gold, silver, and copper, that looks really fantastic, because those are all the metals we desperately need in the next 5 to 10 years. And also, I think if I look at baseline studies, metallurgy is always key, because when you cannot get out your stuff off the rock, you really have a problem. That looks all fantastic. So I think the company is really on track. Check it out. Thanks for watching us, and bye-bye from Switzerland.